Sekeres Price for Tuesday, June 25th.
Wow.
Double check there.
Just like that, huh? June 25th.
It's almost like we awarded the Stanley Cup last night. Tuesday.
Snap your fingers.
June 25th, 2024, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the iconic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver. And if you're hosting a company party, give the Wall Center sales team a call. They'll walk you through the incredible space here. 604-331-1000. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price. Grady Sass, Hidden Switches, conducting things. Big show coming up. All of it, a presentation of Applewood Auto Group.
Applewood Infinity in Richmond has the Q50s, the 24s are in. Lease it from 0%. Plus, you get non-stat cash of $4,000 on select trims as well. Go take one for a test drive. Pay them a visit at the Richmond Auto Mall. It's Applewood Infinity. It's all good at Applewood.
Full question today. We're asking you, was it disrespectful for Connor McDavid to skip the Conn Smythe Trophy presentation? Yes or no? You can vote at Sekeres Price on our YouTube and our Twitter or X channels. And one of the big debates coming out of yesterday's Game 7 Stanley Cup final, the Florida Panthers beat the Edmonton Oilers, win their first Stanley Cup championship ever, and of course prevents the 0-3 comeback by Connor McDavid and his Oilers. I'm not particularly hot or outraged by this, but I do think it is mildly disrespectful from McDavid not to skate out and take the photo and bounce. It would not have required much effort. I understand it's a devastating loss. I understand he wants to be with his teammates, but this is the program, the schedule of events that the National Hockey League has had for some time now. It is an honor being named the playoff MVP. I reject all calls about, no, that would have just detracted from the Florida celebration. No, I don't think so. That was the Florida Panthers moment. No, it was the Conn Smythe Trophy winners moment. That's why they have it there in the schedule of events. So, yeah, I voted yes. Mildly disrespectful. Again, I'm not worked up about it, but if this is going to be how you present your trophies at the end of your final, then yeah, you should have the winner of the playoff MVP present for it.
I too am not, this is not going to be a federal case that I file anytime soon.
No.
But I'll say it's not disrespectful. I say that how it went down was wrong, but it's not his fault. We've got a bunch of problems here. There's just, if you want to stay within the current bounds, then you do it at the end of the handshake line when he's still on the ice. You just greet him as soon as he's gone through the lineup. He's the first one through. You just meet him right there and say, before you go, I'd like to present you with the Conn Smythe Trophy. So there's that as an option A. There's B. We legislate that it's the MVP of the winning team for the playoffs. Or C.
Just knee jerk, it's got to be somebody off the winner?
Well, by its definition, how have you been so valuable as to not bring your team to the Stanley Cup? Like, to me, that's the most value you can get. Somebody that brings you to the Stanley Cup. And he didn't do that. So by that definition, I don't see how
You also think it should be Finals MVP?
Yeah, that's
MVP?
The third option is we change the legislation to be Finals MVP.
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, a diehard Oiler fan, yes, maybe they could recount every game and every series in large detail. But for the other 98% of hockey fans, remember they're just one of 32. They don't remember what Connor McDavid did in the first couple of rounds of the playoffs. They have no recollection of that. And that's what this trophy is honoring. And it's sort of out of place in that moment where you're celebrating the Stanley Cup. Why are we talking about the first and second round performances still? It doesn't make any sense. Make it a finals MVP, and then you almost guarantee that it's going to be from the winning team because you're only talking about a 7-game sample size, and there's no chance he wins it if it's finals MVP. So there's a way around this. They created the mess, and
I'm open to all sorts of new ideas and new ways of doing things. Could you not present it at your award show with the rest of your awards?
You could do that too, sure.
So that you avoid any rare instances, we've seen it before, Hextall, Sekeres, in the rare instances where the playoff MVP is from the losing team, okay, you get it at the award show.
And the players probably more ready to accept it as well.
They are. Of course,
they've had a few days to digest.
There is no hardship to be named the playoff MVP.
No.
Okay, so please don't tell me Connor McDavid had hardship in terms of receiving this trophy. Everyone's saying, I see some of the comments, people getting upset at me. It's a team game. Okay, if that's the case, then why are we anointing an MVP? Or why are we anointing a Norris Trophy, a Vezina Trophy?
Yeah.
If hockey just wants to totally dispense with individual awards and talk about the collective, fair enough.
And the reason
right now, we give out awards to individuals based on individual performance in a variety of categories, and nobody seems to have a problem with them over the totality of the season, accepting the award at the award show, or as we saw this year, in piecemeal. And what do they do invariably? I want to thank my teammates, coaches, blah, 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 for helping. This is a team award.
There's 800 players in the NHL. Only 20 get honored, or 25 get honored with the Stanley Cup. Because it's a quote unquote team game. No, you're gonna reward other performances from the other 775 players that strapped on skates this year. I don't think that's a weird thing, but yeah, better time to present it for sure.
I like this comment on Twitter at Canby Crusader. It would have been a good message for kids to respect the tradition of the sport. Win or lose, you can't duck out of things if things don't go your way. Yeah, character is revealed more in the difficult moments.
And there is some precedent for this in the Olympics. Guess what? The silver medalists lose the game. They've got to sit there and wait while the gold medalists get it.
Blake, I was just going to say, in international hockey and in a lot of other international sports,
you got to sit there and watch.
The runner-up has to sit there, watch the celebration, then line up orderly to receive their medal, and oftentimes they award a player of the tournament from that team as well.
And often they have to sit and watch while the other team gets the gold medals. Only after the final gold medal's been handed out, then the silver medalists are allowed to take off.
Yeah. Do you think a single Florida Panther would have cared if McDavid skated back out, posed for the photo, and skated back?
They wouldn't have cared, but I think everybody, I think the Florida Panthers at that point, they're so excited. They'd probably feel bad for McDavid. They would probably be like, that's just so weird that he has to come and do that. I think
some of them would feel like, it's Bobrovsky's, he should have been the winner. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. No, I don't think
it's not detracting or distracting from.
No, it's just awkward. It's just weird.
It's just awkward. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think of McDavid as the choice? Again, by the definition that we have now, Blake, not.
But again, they often say in discipline, of course, right? Like a suspension in the Stanley Cup Finals worth X more than the first round and X more than a. So by definition, I would say your performances in the Stanley Cup Final are more weighted than your performances in the first round. Connor McDavid in games 1, 2, 6, and 7, formative games, chance to get off on the right foot, the chance to close out a series and really get your team to the top of the mountain. He had 1 point in those critical 4 games. Over the totality of those 4, not in each, in the totality, he had 1 point in those critical 4 games. He had a nice triple set there in games 3, 4, 5, but I think the fact that he wasn't on the score sheet, which is his chief job, the fact that he wasn't, I think that takes away some of the momentum of the records that he set.
So you're going
Bobrovsky or Barkov?
Okay,
take your pick.
All right.
Yeah. Now, if I'm given 3, like the ballots are handed out to these media members, you get 3.
Yeah, 3.
I would have put him on my ballot. I would have probably gone, I probably would have gone Barkov or Bobrovsky, then McDavid, and then the remainder of Barkov or Bobrovsky. Probably would have gone 1, 2, 3 like that.
Yeah, McDavid was 1 vote away from being the unanimous choice. Sergei Bobrovsky got the other first place vote from the 17 voting members of the Professional Hockey Writers Association. Barkov got all but 2 second place votes and a third place vote to finish a distant second from Gustav Forsling.
Gustav Forsling. I mean, great series, great playoffs.
He finished third with 8 third place votes. Bobrovsky got a first place vote and 2 thirds. That's it.
Really?
Yeah.
People got lost in his bad games, but as I said yesterday, judge him by how he won them the games, because it's only about getting 16 wins. It doesn't, your record in the playoffs doesn't matter. How did he perform in the 16 wins? And his stats in the 16 wins are sparkling.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's what tips the scales for me.
Do you think this will create change with the Conn Smythe?
No, this is a terribly slow league act.
This is the first time that a player has refused to participate, right? Jean-Sébastien Giguère did so in 2003.
Hextall did?
Well, when Hextall did, it was presented in a different manner, not on the ice. So we'll see if the NHL feels like there's any.
They might change protocol. They're not going to.
They may change protocol here, or they may just create a separate protocol for when the Conn Smythe Trophy goes to a player on the losing team, like the award show.
Yeah, and you know,
and here's the other thing, Blake. Player doesn't even need to turn up to the award show. 30-second video. Sorry I couldn't make it. Want to thank all my teammates and everybody, blah, blah, blah. We had a great run. You know, you've got the composure after, well, more often than not, it's longer than 48, 72 hours between the end of the cup final and the award show.
Is the trophy landscape too cluttered to keep the Conn Smythe and add a finals MVP?
I think so. Yeah. I think you're doing just
one or the other.
One. Yeah.
Okay.
And we learned today that McDavid has an abdominal injury and maybe headed for surgery this summer. And of course, this is a big summer for Leon Draisaitl. He is eligible to sign an extension with the Edmonton Oilers.
And what are they saying? Hand for him? 1st. Hand injury for him, I think, is what we heard.
I think there's several injuries there. Let's get to our top story, brought to you by Douglas. Roberto Luongo. He gets his ring. He gets his name on the cup, and an interesting selection procedure there from the Florida Panthers, because you only have room for so many names on the cup. And they are going with, 3 executives, their team president, GM Bill Zito, and special assistant Roberto Luongo. He was, of course, the man of the hour in terms of the pregame festivities down there in South Florida, banging the drum and doing so with a gusto we haven't seen very often from Roberto. And then incredibly classy with his post-game interview, where he said, I just want to thank especially the people of Vancouver for their support. I always enjoy going back there, and I look forward to going back there next season. I suspect he will be greeted with more applause and more love when the Florida Panthers come through Rogers Arena next season.
So much intensity as he lifted first of all, the first intense moment we got after the win was giving a big hug to Bobrovsky. Mm-hmm. We saw that. We thought, okay, there's a good moment.
Goalie to goalie.
And then we saw him hoist the cup and the intensity on his face as that moment. And then he gave both Sportsnet and TSN a ton of time. Mm-hmm. Yucked it up with his old buddy Noodles, Jamie McLennan, on the TSN panel, and did a group hug with our own Frankie Corrado and James Duffy as well. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of fun. They were rewarding experience in the NHL and Florida Panthers experience, both in their choice.
Well, he's the all-time Florida Panther.
Yeah.
Right? So when you think of that franchise, and it may very well change now with Tkachuk and Barkov, and they have broken through, but, the Florida Panthers have Roberto Luongo as their be-all, end-all.
So between that choice of putting him on the cup, mm-hmm. they also, in the procession of the cup, they made Ekblad and Tkachuk wait as current leaders on the team.
Yeah.
They went to Bobrovsky and Opozo
and Ekman
Larson and Kulikov before they got to the current crop of superstars in Ekblad and Tkachuk. So they were really on the history train there.
Very pleased for Roberto.
We'll be very pleased for you if you order a Douglas mattress, because we'll just know that you're getting a very good night's sleep and a cool night's sleep. It keeps you cool during the summer. And with the temperature bound to heat up eventually, folks, you'll be very happy you did. Go to Douglas.ca/Canucks Army, and every mattress order comes with a free comfort sleep bundle. There's 2 foam pillows with protectors, cotton sheet set, and a mattress protector that's free with any mattress order. 365-night risk-free trial. Douglas.ca/Canucks.
I suspect Roberto needs a Douglas mattress later today because I don't think he or many of the Panthers got much sleep last night.
They dragged it into the ocean.
Mm-hmm. They've got it on one of the players' balconies on the intercoastal. If you're familiar with Miami and Fort Lauderdale, they have like an intercoastal waterway where people bring their boats. And you look into people's backyards, and there was Barkov with the cup and a couple of players as boaters.
They were pouring beer
by.
out of the cup onto passerbys' mouths.
Right.
Like a liter of beer just falling on your face.
Yeah.
That is the thing. I think the celebratory tour of the cup here in the next 72 hours will look better and look a little bit more fun than it might down White Avenue.
Sure.
You know,
wow. I don't think it'll be quite as busy.
No, not as busy, but it'll look pretty nice.
Incidentally, and we call it the greatest trophy in all of sports. Do you not think if the NFL, Major League Baseball, and the NBA could do it over again, they would not fashion a cup, right? Something you can drink out of. It just changes the entire dynamic
100%
of the celebration.
Like the CFL and the NHL have the two best trophies in the sport.
They do.
Now, I should say Champions League's really cool too. Champions League, it's almost too big in Champions League, though. It's mammoth. But it's pretty cool. And a lot of the soccer trophies are pretty cool too, actually. But in terms of North American sport, those are pretty good.
The Remay Trophy, first of all, it's a lot smaller than you would think, the World Cup trophy.
Yes.
And there's a good documentary about it. There's
it's called the frickin' World Cup. It should be a cup. Come on.
Just saying. Can't drink from it. Is it even a cup, bro?
It looks like it should be like a film or TV award, the World Cup. It's almost that size.
Yeah. Paul Maurice, one of the great communicators in the National Hockey League, a very touching speech and a shout out to his dad. Plus a whole lot of love for the city of Winnipeg and the Jets from whence he came. Matthew Tkachuk shouting out all the Calgary Flames fans saying, wouldn't let it.
Great line.
Canada's team didn't win, but between Roberto and Vancouver, Maurice and Winnipeg, Tkachuk and Calgary, there was a whole lot of love for Canadian markets and franchises. You can tell how much this country means to the fabric of the sport and the league at its championship.
Could you make the argument that the Panthers were Canada's team, giving all the love spread across the country by the Panthers?
I think many Canucks fans on Twitter did, or at least were trying to convince others of it.
Yeah.
How about Ekman Larsson? And we mentioned that Taj tweet from last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, the first guy on the Canucks payroll to win a Stanley Cup. He gets it second after Bobrovsky. You know, and that's an ode to the fact that he was at one point a really great player in this league and toiled for a really terrible franchise.
And it might have been because he was cast off. It might have been, there might have been a buyout empathy element to that, you know, like he's battled some adversity here to get to that point.
Here's Thomas Drance, though, the Athletic. In the playoffs, OEL on the ice at 5-on-5. Florida outshot their opponents by 44, outscored their opponents 14-9. In the finals, Florida 6, Edmonton 1 with OEL on the ice. So Gustav Forsling and Oliver Ekman-Larsson, two ex-Canucks defensemen, playing pretty big roles in this championship victory.
Some very good defensive forwards on that team as well.
Well, I mean, honestly,
team
when
defense.
I think back on this title, Blake, I'm going to think back as the calling card being the defensive prowess of the forward group. Like, that's not something that typically springs to front of mind when considering a champion. As we have talked about with Barkov, he is a magnificent player and a first-line center, but he's a bit of an unconventional first-line center. He's far more Patrice Bergeron, Ryan O'Reilly than he is Lemieux, Gretzky, you know, that level, McKinnon, that level of just superstar scoring.
And let's not misquote this. This isn't the Canucks copying the Panthers, because Rick Tocchet was doing this anyway with the team, but it does bode well for the Canucks that there is a path forward for a team that can score, and Barkov certainly can, but also knows how to defend.
Well, yeah, you wanted to talk about lessons for the Canucks from this Cup champion. And honestly, I'm not sure there's a ton of lessons with this.
Well, I don't believe in lessons anyway.
Well,
every
I
team
shouldn't say that. There's lessons, and especially the deeper you want to look. One thing, the trade for Tkachuk and trading out really good players who had helped you to a fantastic season like Huberdeau and Weegar. That's a stark lesson, because that shows you just how ruthless, just how exacting, just how precise, and just how quickly you have to get off a player when you don't think they're a Stanley Cup playoff performer. And that's why there's still a little sliver of me that wonders what the Canucks upper management thinks of Elias Pettersson after his first go through the playoffs, because Huberdeau was not a playoff performer, had a monster season, and they moved off him. So I think that's a lesson.
You do have to be patient, though, because, you do have to mold your team a little bit. Like, it doesn't mean that you make a trade like that, like they did for Matthew Tkachuk, and all of a sudden you just win the Stanley Cup. Now, he did bring them to the Stanley Cup in his first year as the Florida Panthers, but not all trades work out that famously.
No.
Sometimes you have to be a little bit more patient before that player finds his way through the fabric of the team. But a bold move that shows you when you've got a chance to acquire a guy that you fully believe is a difference maker. And I don't know that we can quite draw the parallel to a Jake Gensel signing.
No, I don't think so.
But it is of that category that the Canucks are thinking, that's a different category of player than Tyler Toffoli, than Jake DeBrusk, all those sort of things, right? That's why you see them maybe a little bit more willing to make the acquisition.
It's a big defense, but it's not a huge defense from Florida. You have two guys who stand very tall, in Ekblad and Mikkola, both 6'4". For the most part, the other guys are like 6-footers.
But Montour's solid.
Yeah, I mean, they're all solid.
Yeah.
Ekman Larson, 6'2", 200. Kulikov, 6'1", 200. Montour, 6 foot, 190. So yeah, it's a big defense. The hot goalie, but we knew that previously, right? I think you could also argue, and look, I'm sure the Florida Panthers would say, no, we rolled 4 lines and all that. But, I drew a distinction between their top 9 and their fourth line, and it's a very strong top 9. And as you say, as much defensively oriented forwards as offensively inclined forwards. So, yeah, I mean, there's some lessons to be drawn there, but, I'm not necessarily sure this is a break the mold. This is the new era. This is the new way to construct a Stanley Cup champion.
No, and I think those are always folly arguments at the end of a Stanley Cup anyway, because everybody's going to do it differently. If there was one way to do it, somebody would be doing it every year.
The other thing is all 6 defensemen played every single game in the Stanley Cup playoffs for Florida.
That's a huge storyline.
Their 7th defenseman, Josh Mahura, he played 30 games in the regular season. So, typical of what you see. Yep. In fact, probably a little less than what you see of a 7th defenseman, because they're spot playing here or there for guys who are nicked, banged up, have, minor injuries. He didn't play at all.
They don't have a 7th guy with the GP.
No, and all 9 forwards played all 24 games too.
Only 6 defensemen dressed. They never went 7 defensemen for a game?
6 defensemen the entire postseason, and 9 of the 12 forwards played all 24 games. So, the other lesson is good health, good luck.
Yeah. Which would mean they didn't dip into the Black Aces too much for guys like Jonah Gadjevich, even though he's going on the cup.
And he's going on the cup. His name's going on the cup.
Really?
Yeah, he was one of the names on the cup.
Former Canuck PTO Tuomo Ruutu is an assistant there.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Another tie-in.
All right. Now, on the Vancouver Canucks. So far, no success on the Ilya Mikheyev trade front. So we were getting very much down to a decision here. Keep and hope for the bounce-back season, or buyout window. Opens in 48 hours. Well, actually less than that. From the end of the Stanley Cup final. You would save $3.6 million of his $4.75 million salary this year. You would save $2.6 of his salary next year, and then have hits of $1.55 million in the subsequent two seasons. Thank you. What do you think?
No chance. Like there's not any part of me that would do that.
The buyout, you mean?
No.
So you're keeping and hoping for a bounce back.
No, I'm shopping a 3rd round pick. If I see what that does, then I'm shopping a 2nd round pick, and I'm seeing what that does. And I'm offering to retain $1 million over the next 2, and I'm seeing what that does. I'm not buying this player up. I would rather keep. I would if all those other avenues dry up, then yes, I'm bringing the player back. Yeah, I'm not buying this player out. I'm not continually buying players out for really mediocre gratification in this. This is not a great win.
So the buyout window opens. It'll be Wednesday night, and it goes through Sunday. So that's your window to buy out Ilya Mikheyev if they're going down that road.
It means that next year.
Remind you that last year the Canucks sort of poo-pooed the notion of buying out Oliver Ekman-Larsson at their year-end media availability, and then Patrick Allvin bought him out. Well, last year it was plainly obvious that there was so much cap savings to be had with Ekman-Larsson in year 1 and to a lesser degree in year 2. It was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
This one is far more less likely.
And the punitive 2nd year of a Mikheyev buyout means that in that year, because that's a balloon year for the OEL buyout, you'd have $7 million in dead space.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
And I think Blake's right in that having bought out the one player, you don't want to compound your dead money. There's one thing owners hate. It's dead money, right?
Paying people not to
work for us, and in some cases to work against us.
Yeah.
In the 2 games annually against the Florida Panthers. But of course, OEL signs with the Pacific Division team. You're paying them to play against you 4 or 5 times a year.
Yeah.
And who wants that? Pierre LeBrun reporting that the Stars remain in talks with Chris Tanev, that they're trying to make it work and bring back the former Vancouver Canuck, but he describes it as a huge market for him. Tanev on Monday that the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is Tanev's hometown team, would be involved here. We saw a re-signing of a right shot defenseman in the league today, and Dylan DeMello. We'll get to that later in the program. We saw an itty-bitty trade from Nashville and Detroit today, including a 2nd-round pick from last year's draft. We saw a much bigger trade last night from the Boston Bruins and Ottawa Senators.
Which is a good deal for them. It's a really good deal because it's not even their 1st-round pick. It's a late 1st-round pick that they acquired.
On the surface, it looks like a steal for the Senators.
Yeah.
You get Ullmark, the guy who won the Vezina Trophy, going away last year.
Yeah.
For Korpisalo, who was a total flop as a free agent, you're retaining 25% there.
Depth player.
A depth player in Kastelik, although some people think that this is a really good bottom 6 center who's got the right sort of Bruins profile, a 25-year-old right shooting,
and that's fine. You do
26 snarly guy.
You do have to give somebody, so like that's fine.
And the 25th overall pick, which originally belonged to the Boston.
Yeah, the Sens still have their 1st-round pick. It's 7th overall. So like they're no worse for wear here, and they've all of a sudden got a Vezina Trophy winner.
Boston wanted to add down the middle, so they got a bottom 6 center. They've got their backup goaltender. They've got a 25th overall pick to help restore some of the cupboard there after years of being good and trading away picks.
Yeah.
So this could very well be a trade that works out for both teams. Now, we'll see how Ullmark does when he's not in front of the Boston lineup. The Senators have been far more generous in terms of what they give up.
When healthy, that Senator team's not that bad.
Well, it looks good on paper, but, we'll see. Also, some of the advanced stats didn't paint that huge a difference between Ullmark and Korpisalo last season. So anyways, that trade goes down. And honestly, Blake, I'm listening to NHL Network. My best friend, Carmen, her friend, we all went to my parents' house last night to watch the game.
Mm-hmm.
We're driving to the game, and that trade comes down on the official pregame show.
Yeah.
As we're listening to NHL satellite radio. Poor David Pagnotta sitting there trying to stick handle the trade as they're in the midst of the pregame with players on the ice. And I'm sitting there going, oh, Gary's not liking this.
No, Gary had a very tumultuous night because the Sunbelt team won. You know, he just loves that.
that.
But I could picture him sulking in the corner, having a drink.
No, Connor,
Somebody made a trade right in pregame.
big trade.
It just didn't go.
And I got booed.
Wasn't the kind of day I envisioned.
And I got booed again.
Oh, well. He'll be okay, I think. Gary.
John Marino. We've discussed him. Right shot defenseman from the New Jersey Devils. Once upon a time, of course, a Pittsburgh Penguin. Well, he gets moved to New Jersey where it hasn't really worked out there for him. He's got a modified no trade. It's just an 8-team list. He submits an 8-team list. He's $4.4 million over the next 3 years as a 27-year-old. He'll play all next year as a 27-year-old. And in the past, John Marino has been, a 25-point defense? Well, he was a 25-point defenseman this year as well. This from J Fresh Hockey. Having suffered through 88% on-ice goaltending this season, having 2 more years at $4.4 million, Marino could be a very strong buy low candidate for a team looking for a bit of stability and puck moving at the 2 right D position. This is the whole Blake Price that you have been talking about with this Vancouver Canucks team, which could you re-sign Tyler Myers and play him there this year? Yep. Based on the way that Tyler Myers played last year, you'd feel okay about that. Now, age is coming for Tyler Myers as it comes for every player. He'd be more appropriately slotted as your third pair right side defenseman.
Yeah.
$4.4 million, Blake, for Marino for the next 3 years as a 27-year-old. You willing to give up something good there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you have to explore that one.
Yeah. I mean, we should bring up this other trade because this affects the defense market as well.
Oh. Is this one so new that I have not?
Yes, just came in. Jake Wallman's been traded by, who does Steve Yzerman want as his defenseman here?
Yeah.
A 20-something left shot defenseman that he had to pay to go away.
Yeah, once a top prospect in St. Louis.
But he just scored 12 goals this season. They have to peel off a 2nd-round pick to get San Jose to take him for nothing. Future's coming back.
What's he getting paid?
3.5. Make it make sense. Again, I'm not a Jake Wallman fan. I think he's limited, but he is a $3.4 million defenseman. I think that's appropriately slotted.
12 goals on defense is worth something, isn't it?
Yeah. Stevie Y's decisions on the blue line are very interesting. So
here's the thing about Stevie Y. He did incredible work in Tampa. I know he wasn't there. Breezeball gets all the credit, or gets the shine at least, of being the GM of the Cup team. A lot of that was Steve Yzerman work. And yet his encore here back home has not exactly been lightning good.
I guess it's just Moritz Seider money, right? They have to.
Well, two huge RFAs with that team. Moritz Seider
and Raymond
and Lucas Raymond.
And I think they probably want to bring back Joe Valeno too.
For sure. Yeah.
So there's some money to be doled out there, but they've got 33 schmil in cap space. Well, I think you're going to be okay, Steve.
And Blake, they've missed out on the goaltender market here.
Yeah. But in the end, the big lesson here, folks, is trades are happening.
That's actually one of the things I wonder that Boston looked around and went, okay. Jersey was the Allmark spot. They went out and got Markstrom. LA was an Allmark spot. They went out and got Kemper, which whatever you think of Darcy Kemper. That if Boston looked around and went, okay, so the goaltending needy teams are a little fewer here. Are we going to make a trade with Toronto, or is Carolina going to hold out on us? Do we have any opportunity to try? Let's just take the Ottawa deal. It's a bird in the hand.
Dom Decision with the quote tweet on the Detroit trade saying just all caps, what? Is this Stevie Y in on Pesci or Montour or Gensel, or is he just clearing space because he's a big player on July 1? Is it just that? Is Yzerman done with the losing and just wants to be really good next year? They've got the kind of cap space now that all those sorts of moves are in play here for Detroit.
That's quite odd.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're Mike Grier in San Jose, so someone's going to give me an NHL player for nothing, and all I have to do is pay him, what's it, 3.7?
Yeah, you're 3.4. And I mean, I'm not. Would you be surprised if San Jose even flipped that player? I mean,
Was he 28?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good
Yeah,
deal.
there's been some head scratchers here.
Yeah.
There have been some head scratchers, but yeah, offseason is upon us. So we're watching the Vancouver Canucks, and who knows, there might be an emergency pod that we need to do here coming up.
There very well might be. There very well might be. I mean, it's taken less than 24 hours.
Well, they're usually a
trades to
pretty
come in.
aggressive team, right? So that's the one learning that we've had here. They're usually an aggressive team, so I would suspect you're looking at Patrick Allvin, Jim Rutherford being very busy here, seeing what's out there. Of course, we await a decision on Nikita Zadorov, whether he's going to be coming back or whether or not he's going to get to free agency on Monday. We think Lindholm and Joshua are done, that they're going to get to Monday and sign with other clubs for more money than what the Canucks were offering, or in the case of Lindholm, perhaps for more opportunity than what the Canucks have offered. They have Artur Shelovs that they need to re-sign. He's a restricted free agent, but he is offer sheet eligible. And then, of course, Gensel. Are they going to get Gensel done on Canada? Not to mention Tyler Myers as well in the build-up here to Monday. So plenty going on.
Just to bring this Wallman trade back to the Canucks, it's a second-round pick to pay Mikheyev to go away emphatically now. If they needed to attach a second-round sweetener to Wallman,
yeah,
my goodness, it's definitely a second-rounder to get rid of Mikheyev. And who'd have thought?
Yeah.
Everybody's befuddled by this trade.
Everybody's
like on the online response to this trade is what the what?
Well, the pick Detroit sent them, was it this year's second rounder?
I don't think I've seen that spelled out just yet, or if it's their own or any of that.
Well, I see them showing a second rounder this year, but I also
second round pick in 2024, originally from Tampa. There you go.
So the Tampa pick.
Yeah.
All right. So San Jose now with 2 first-round picks, 3 second-round picks, and 5 other picks in this year's draft after acquiring. So Tampa now, or San Jose now, has 5 of the first. Wow, this is pretty good work.
Is Yzerman taking a run at Stamkos? Would that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
You know?
I can't get over the second round pick with.
I know.
I'm still trying to get over this.
Make it make sense. Yeah. And as everybody says, his cap hit is exactly what it should be. Like he's not overpaid at 3.4.
Yeah.
Very odd.
Right. So San Jose now with 5 of the first 53 picks, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. Bizarre. Speaking of free agency, you're going to want to watch the Daily Faceoff live free agency special. July 1st starts at 8 a.m. Take you through to 11 a.m. We're going to be going shortly thereafter. Frank Saravelli, Tyler Yaremchuk, former NHLers Carter Hutton, and Colby Cohen. That's 8 a.m. at the Daily Faceoff on Free Agency Day, Canada Day, on Monday. Let's get to today's menu. It is brought to you by Greta Bar. Great spot to watch the game. Great spot to pregame. Great spot to postgame. And, of course, the Kick-Ass Arcade. You're a short walk to the Rinker Stadium, a go-to spot for food, drinks, and fun. Make it a game night at Greta 50 West Cordova or at gretabar.com. We talked to John Shannon here, about the Conn Smythe Trophy, about the length of this season, about the short runway to the offseason, about Roberto Luongo, and more from the end of the hockey season and Game 7. We also talked to Ashley Stephenson, Vancouver Canadians coach. She is just the second woman inducted to the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. Went to the induction ceremony a couple weeks back in St. Mary's, Ontario. also a former professional hockey player, two-sport star. So she has plenty to say about the most recent honor. Not to mention the Vancouver Canadians back here at home for a 9-game homestand. All right. Bet365, bets of the day. This segment brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Sekeres Price. Delighted to have them aboard. I'm looking at this Canada-Peru match. Alphonso Davies, not his best performance in Canada's Copa opener. I think we can all agree. I suspect, like a lot of the great ones, of course, he'll be a sad boy today, big Oilers fan, that you don't bring your best. Well, the next game, here it comes. So, back at it against Peru today. Canadian captain is plus 500 as an anytime goal scorer. I'm going there.
All right.
Because no finish in the first game needs some finish.
I'm going back to a player that covered me in glory last week in tomorrow's matchup of
covered you in glory.
Czechia and Turkey, a matchup of two countries that have forced us to change their names.
Oh my God, he is going Turkey.
And I'm going back to
this is a real thing.
Yeah.
Like I realized the spelling has changed on Turkey.
No, Jay Henry talked about it last night on the show because he was putting himself on E's and O's for saying Turkey by accident.
Turkey,
yeah. The teenager, going back to him, Artiguler, plus 350 anytime goal scorer to take down Czechia.
How old is he?
19.
Where's he plays club ball?
Real.
Have you seen this Lamine Yamal for Spain? The 16.
Oh, yeah, the 60. Yeah.
Blistering pace. Couldn't get over the highlight package they showed of him. Reminds me of Allen Iverson. He's faster with the ball than everybody else is without the ball.
Canada's Jacob Schaffelberg's kind of like that, too. He's pretty fast with the ball on his feet, too.
All right, so you've got a teenager for Turkey.
Yeah.
Over Czechia.
Plus 350.
At the Euro. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code VANBONUS when opening that account. John Shannon is next.
In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey set up as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova.
Our next guest brought to you by the Arnold Palmer Design Whistler Golf Club. Off to an incredible start to the 2024 season. Amazing reviews on course conditions and service, and reminding group organizers, you got 12 or more. It's not too early to get your September and October buddy or corporate trips booked. Primetime's filling up fast. You, the group organizer, plays for free. Tell us about your group. whistlergolf.com/groups. John Shannon is the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada, the co-host of the Bob McCowan podcast, and he has seen a number of Stanley Cups presented, including last night's to the Florida Panthers. Hello, John. How are you?
I'm good, boys. Kind of happy hockey, at least this part of hockey's over. I was tired.
Yeah, it was a long season.
A long year, John. An awfully long year. And so why don't we just start there? Because I felt like last week we might have gotten to a breaking point in terms of people complaining about the duration of the NHL season. It's always been a CBA matter, we've been told, right? Because the standard player contract expires July 1st. We got a CBA coming up in a couple of years. Do we think that this year was the learning that we got to move the hockey season up and get it finished a little more quickly?
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Are you serious?
Yes.
No.
Oh.
First of all, the July 1st is because it's the National Hockey League fiscal year. They go July 1st to June 30th. So it's strictly a financial thing in addition to the collective bargaining agreement. But when we see the ratings later today, and we'll see numbers that suggest that between the two countries, and this is my guess, we're going to be close to 12 million people, everybody's going to say, hey, they're watching hockey on June 24th. What's the problem?
Well,
Let's keep on going.
I guess the question would be, could you have got a bigger audience if the game had been a little earlier in the month?
And what did Game 3 and Game 4 look like on the relative scale?
Well, the ratings for the whole final were up in the United States, and the rating in Canada was always over 3 million. Game 6 did 4.7 million in Canada and 4.2 in the United States. So we're in that 9 million. I just think that Game 7's numbers are going to be stronger because everybody always tunes in for a definitive game. So I think people are going to think we're just fine. And by the way, if the Canucks, if it had been the Canucks in the Stanley Cup final rather than the Oilers, everybody in Vancouver would have said it was just fine.
Sure, anybody in the two competing markets is in. I mean, in for a penny, in for a pound. But no, I was talking.
This was a compelling series in the end that lots of people latched on to in games 5, 6, and 7.
But the players have to say, back to the CBA part of it, like, sports are starting to realize they're asking too much of their athletes. At what point do the players say, we've got no interest in playing for you for 10 of the 12 months of the year? At what point do they step up and have their voice heard there?
The players are business partners. The players love the money. The players are just fun with it. In fact, I would tell you that probably the players liked the schedule of the Stanley Cup final with the extra day of rest between travel days. So in many ways, I would say that the players were catered to in this scenario of this final, and that might become more of a precedent than anything else.
But there's a happy medium there of starting the season October.
Sure there is. But that's here. Let me just tell you one story. So I was with the league for 5 years, and I sat in a board of governors meeting with 3 owners in the meeting that suggested the hockey season should start November 1st. All 3 of them were from southern U.S. cities. All 3 of them had very important NFL teams in their cities. And none of them wanted to play hockey and compete against the National Football League. So, and that was at a time when our American TV partner was all in with hockey first, because it was the primary property that they had on their cable network, NBC. Well, the National Hockey League now partners with TNT and with ESPN Disney, whose primary partners are basketball and football. And hockey is at least third in one network and second in the other. And I would suggest that pushing the schedule to the middle of October, that competes less with football, competes less with Major League Baseball playoffs, is the way it's going to be in the foreseeable future.
Let's move on to the series in the game itself. First of all, we were having a debate yesterday. Could you argue that last night's game was the biggest in NHL history, given the 0-3 comeback and the best player in the world involved in a Game 7?
Recency bias, I think you could say that, but it's recency bias. I think it's all generational. I would argue that the Canucks and Rangers in '84 was as big a game. I think people in Chicago and Montreal would argue Game 7 in 1973 was as big as you were going to find. I would argue that, when you look at where hockey has come from, and you had Toronto and Montreal playing in a Game 6 Stanley Cup final in '67, or a Montreal-Calgary Stanley Cup final in 1989. I think that they're all, at this point, with where the game is, in this, maybe we can pick 20 years. Is this the biggest game in 20 years? Yeah, it is. There have been bigger games as big as we saw last night in the history of the game, and it just so happens that we like to take extremes. It's either the best or the worst, and we don't understand the 90% of gray in the middle.
Let's ask our poll question. Should Connor McDavid, was it disrespectful for McDavid not to come out and accept the Conn Smythe trophy?
No, I don't think so. I think you have to respect the player. I think you have to respect his emotions. You know, I never played in the National Hockey League, but when you have gone through the battles of the games that these guys went through together, I'm not sure I'd want to leave the room to go back on the ice to receive an award and come back into the room saying I won an award. J.S. Sekeres went back on the ice in 2003 to accept the award. I think if you ask J.S. Sekeres then and in past years, could he have gone back on the ice? I think he would have a different opinion than what he did.
Yeah, he has actually said that the Once Upon a Time in Anaheim E60 documentary. He mentions that it was a sad moment. He called it, and he left on a trainer's table out of view from his teammates.
Yeah, exactly. For the longest time, and I'm going to show my age here, for the longest time, as a guy who produced the Stanley Cup final, the Conn Smythe Trophy was always given out in the TV studio.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Ronnie Hextall won it in '87 in Edmonton, and we did it outside of the Flyer dressing room as a presentation.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't done on the ice. I think there has to be. I have no issue with the way they handled it last night. I have no issue with the way Connor handled it last night. And I think that I think from that perspective, it was handled as tastefully as it could be. My pal McCowan, though, I got to tell you, who always comes up with different angles, asked the question on our show this morning, what if the game had been in Edmonton? Would Connor have gone on the ice in Edmonton?
Yeah.
And a really good question. And we'll never know, but something tells me he would not have, because he'd be so disappointed still.
And if he had been in Edmonton, because one of the things that we're seeing in our comments on our poll question, would that have been disrespectful to and stolen from the Panthers celebration?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Listen, we are still all human.
Mm-hmm.
We are still all emotional. We have to allow for individual emotions to play a part in sports. For Connor not to come up, it was an emotional decision he made, and you have to respect that.
I think
Shannon.
I think there's a spot where they can do
this one has a brainchild in terms of what to do.
Two comments.
Forward.
First of all, I think there is a way to do it. You do it at the end of the handshake line. You got to get on the mic quicker if you're Gary in the NHL. There's that as an option, or you do what every other sport does. And I know that NHL people like to uphold tradition. It was always thus, so we must not change. But of course, Connor McDavid is not hoisting that trophy if it's Finals MVP like every other sport does. Grey Cup MVP, Super Bowl MVP, NBA Finals MVP. They focus on the moment that matters and the MVP of that moment, not on what he did 12 weeks ago in round one versus we don't even remember at this point. Connor McDavid doesn't win this trophy for Finals MVP, not even close. He had 1 point in games 1, 2, 6, 7. It's Bobrovsky or it's Barkov, and we get to celebrate the performance of a player on the winning team. Doesn't that make more sense?
Well, not to me, but I understand the logic.
Yeah.
The award was given to the league by the Smythe family because it was supposed to award the complete playoffs. That was the original rule. But let me. You can extend that. So if you're going to do that, why are we giving out the Hart Trophy for a regular season? Why don't we include the playoffs too? There are exponential. There are other equations that could come in. I don't have a problem with it being for 25 games. I mean, I think Blake, I'll be honest, I think it's very respectful of the journey that players and teams take for the last 2 months, period. And if we're worried about, well, we have to be concerned how we present the trophy, then we're missing the point of what the trophy stands for. The trophy stands for how that journey of, 5 games against LA, 7 games against the Canucks, 6 games against Dallas, and 7 games against the Florida Panthers. That's the journey, and that's the trophy. So, changing the rules is one thing. I just don't think the rules need to be changed because we don't like how it's presented.
No, it just feels like a participation ribbon at this point, though. Like it feels like, we should.
You think Connor McDavid was awarded the Conn Smythe Trophy because of the participation medal?
It feels like that now. Yeah, you didn't win the cup, but you were good. You were good. Here's a trophy. Here's something. Like, no, reward the guy who brought his team to the Stanley Cup. That makes more sense to me. It's what every other sport does.
I think we're the ultimate team sport, and quite frankly, I could give 2 hoots about the Conn Smythe. And as I tweeted out, it's funny. I tweeted something out. There's so much discussion in game 5 and 6 about, Connor might win the Conn Smythe. I tweeted out, and it got lots of reaction. I tweeted out that Connor McDavid could care less about the Conn Smythe trophy, having his name on one trophy. He wants 52 names on the big trophy.
Well, and
that's all he wants.
That supports my argument, because if you talk to guys, Kobe before he passed, Michael Jordan, and all that, they love to talk about their finals MVP in terms of their resume, in terms of why,
different sport, different culture, different sport.
Yep.
Different culture, different sport.
Let me ask this, because the other comments we're seeing in our poll is, no, it's an individual award. This is a team sport. Why not dispense with it entirely?
Yeah, exactly. Then why have it?
I would have no issue with it being removed. I'd have no issue with it being removed. But it isn't removed. It is still part of the greatest silverware in the history of professional sports. Yep. And let's just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah, no, it's the appetizer to the cup presentation, which is the greatest trophy in all of team sport.
I hadn't seen till the montage.
Fine moments.
I hadn't seen till the montage, by the way, which was well done as per usual at the end of the regular season to the Killers this time. I hadn't seen that little clip of Paul Maurice talking of, was it Barkov, saying don't touch the Prince of Wales?
Oh yeah, no, that had been out there. Yep, that had been out there for sure.
I mean, again, why are we presenting these trophies that nobody touches?
Why are we presenting trophies that nobody wants?
Right.
In this sport,
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
The irony of it all is that the Edmonton Oilers will be unveiling a Campbell Conference banner, and the Florida Panthers will be unveiling a Prince of Wales Conference banner, or an Eastern Conference banner, Prince of Wales Trophy banner. And by the way, every other sports league now presents trophies at the end of conference championships.
No,
the NFL does it. The NBA does it. The CFL does it.
Yeah.
Do they touch them?
Yeah. No, they do.
I think they do.
People grab from our hunt trophy.
By the way, I'm going to go back and touch my Stanley Cup, and I'm going to guarantee that I'll never win it. Okay, what's that?
You're so right, John. Hey, if you had a vote, would you have voted for McDavid?
Yes. If with the criteria of voting for 25 games, yes.
So let me ask you this: let's survey the room. If you have a vote and you're voting for someone on the losing team who is not going to come out and accept the trophy, does that change your vote?
Yeah, it does. It does for me,
John.
No, it can't.
Shouldn't.
It can't. And by the way, by the time you voted at the 12-minute mark of the third period, you voted at the 12-minute mark of the third period. The Oilers could have scored when they pulled the goalie, forced overtime, and won the game.
Now,
but by the way, last I checked, they didn't. So
I certainly wouldn't pull the Jim Matheson and vote only for losing players.
Well, no, but here's the thing, and I know this because I've run Grey Cup MVP voting. John is right. You do it with time left in the game because the TV people are in your ear saying we need to know whoever.
It's not the TV people. It's not the TV. It's the league people. The league.
It's the league people in conjunction with the TV people who will be awarding the MVP trophy. And so you do get it done early, but you allow for the fact that if things go buck wild here in the final couple of minutes and we have voters coming to us saying, I want to change my vote, then we're going to send you a second, set of
That's right.
So,
Absolutely.
so there is
Absolutely.
a fail-safe.
And by the way, if Sergei Bobrovsky had won the Conn Smythe last night,
Mhm.
I would not have objected. I would not have objected. You know, and he won 4 games in the Stanley Cup final. He went against Jeremy Swayman. He went against Igor Shesterkin. He went against Andrei Vasilevsky.
Mhm.
You know,
Right.
he
played a pantheon of head-to-head goaltender matchups. Quite true.
you know, so he was deserving of winning the trophy as well. If the vote had gone and 17 balloters, you know, if they had voted 9-8 for Bobrovsky, I would have been just fine with that.
Yeah.
But if I was going to vote, I would have voted McDavid.
A word or two on Roberto Luongo, John.
I tell you what, when I saw him beating the drum and I saw the expression on his face, I had never seen an expression on Roberto's face like that at the Olympics when I was wearing a mask when I was playing for the Canucks. But I'd never seen that kind of expression on his face and how involved and engaged he was. And then for him to raise the cup over his head, I think there was a little bit of me that said, "Oh, okay, the circle is closed now. Life is good."
Pretty cathartic. Yeah.
At first, I thought it might have been put on, and then I saw his face again, and I'm like, "No, I think he's just really pumped up for this game."
He was. Let's put it this way: he was better than Jack Nicklaus.
Yeah, I think he wanted to be in the blue paint for last night's game.
Well, I'm happy for him. I'm happy for Paul. You know, there are lots of great stories on both teams. It doesn't hurt the game. The Florida Panthers won the Stanley Cup. That's for sure.
And you've got to hand it to former player agent turned executive Bill Zito. I mean, that Matthew Tkachuk trade he pulled off a couple. I mean, that takes boulders, man. After a season in which you were as great as you were with a player who put up points like Huberdeau, not to mention a top 4 right side defenseman in Uyghur, and you give up a first-round pick, and you give up a reasonable prospect for one guy, and he's a winger, no less. And here you are getting your reward.
And let's remember, that was after a 122-point season.
Right.
They did get swept by Tampa round 2. They didn't renew the coach that had put them the 122 points in Andrew Brunette, because he had replaced Joel early in the season, if you recall. You know, so there, and then last night he made 2 trades at the deadline: Vladimir Tarasenko and Kyle Okposo, and both guys are in the lineup last night.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's lots of positives for Billy Zito, and I have friends in Columbus, and I think the ownership has to be wondering, hold on now. Bill Zito, the manager in Florida, why wasn't he the manager in the end in Columbus?
Paul Maurice, I think most people are glad for him. He's such a nice guy. I don't think he deserved to be Marty Schottenheimer of the National Hockey League. I'm glad he got a cup.
Yeah. And I loved what he said when he turned and looked into the camera, and he said to his father, you know, Dad, your name is now going to go there with Beliveau and Richard and Howe and Lindsay and Maurice. And I'll tell you what, I get emotional about giving the Stanley Cup every year since the first time I saw it carried out to the ice in Boston in the late 70s. I was almost in tears when he said that. I was almost in tears, because that's why we play the game, boys. That's why we love the game, and that's why we're so committed to the game, is for your family.
Yeah, first time I've watched the Stanley Cup final with my dad, and I don't know how long. That line hit home in particular. They did a very nice job on the opening and on the closing, and incorporating the voice of our late friend Bob Cole, because yesterday was his birthday. So very well done by the Hockey Night Canada producer group on the front and back end of Game 7.
Well, nobody could call a game like Bob Cole. Nobody could do it like Robert Cecil Cole, and we miss him every day.
So, Florida Panthers, enjoy today because your GM is at work tomorrow, and one of you may not be a Panther by week's end.
McDavid been traded. No, I'm just joking. You never know.
It is a little much, John.
Yeah.
Like I feel bad for some of these scouts and front office people who should really get a few days to savor all of this, and instead are going to get a few hours before the new league.
Well, not to your timing is tough, but like Bill Zito's had his meetings all for the last 8 days because he can't do anything during the game or during the day of the practice. So, their scouting department, me and Brian McKay and all those guys, they've all been working their tails off. So have the Oilers with their group. Interesting to see what happens in Edmonton sooner than later. We know that Kenny Holland is leaving. Is how quickly things will happen in Edmonton to find a new manager and what happens there.
Okay, well, we'll talk next week, and when we do, free agency will be upon us. We'll have
a completely different team, the Vancouver Canucks.
Right? You expecting the Canucks to be big players?
I'll be lying if I tell you that I had been on the phone for the last 3 days worried about free agency. I've been worried about the Stanley Cup final. Do I think the Canucks are going to be doing things? I will never not think that Jim Rutherford wants to do things.
That's right.
Jimmy Rutherford, I still remember when he came on our show on the radio one day, and I said, "Why are you concerned about losing draft picks?" No, I want to win the cup now. I've got Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, and we're going to win again. Mm-hmm. I'll worry about that when we have that problem. And they went on and won a second consecutive Stanley Cup.
Yep. We'll take just one here in Vancouver.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need two. Yeah.
After all those years of being downtrodden, you get to the second round of the playoffs. Now you won everything. What's going on?
Mm-hmm. Close to 94, 2011 as well. Those were really big games on the way in.
They were. I think I agree with you, Matt. I think I agree with you. Although I think the rest of the country cheered more, other than British Columbia, cheered more for the Oilers this year than the rest of the country cheered for the Canucks in 2011.
Yes. I think that, yes. The Oilers have the best player on the planet. He's created a bit of a following.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's from Southern Ontario. So
and the last greatest player to ever live was also in Edmonton, spreading the brand around as well. So yeah, I will concur with that.
Okay.
Northlands Golf Course. Download the free app and book tee times with a touch of your thumb. And while you're on course, open the app for hole-by-hole GPS and track your score. 6 to 90-day reservations. Jump the queue. Lock in your date for $10 per player booking fee. Limited daily availability. Check it all out. GolfNorthlands.com.
The Vancouver Canadians are back at the Nat. Catch fireworks, giveaways, and Friday nooners all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at CanadiansBaseball.com.
Our next guest is considered the finest player in the history of the women's national baseball team for Canada. 15 seasons, 8 World Cups, 7 medals, and as of a couple of weeks ago, Ashley Stephenson is a newly minted member of the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. And we find her at Nat Bailey Stadium, where she coaches with the Vancouver Canadians. Ashley, thanks for the time. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. So tell us about your big induction weekend.
You know what? It was amazing. I went home for 3 days. They had an event the first Thursday night in Toronto. I live just about 45 minutes outside of Toronto. So I got to see the new renovations at the Rogers Centre. I actually hadn't been there in a little bit. And then Friday was the golf tournament. Beautiful weather. Couldn't have asked for a better day. And then Saturday, the induction. Had lots of friends, family, teammates, coaches there. Like really, they did a great job, and it was a special day for me.
Yeah, Kevin Glue does a marvelous job there. I understand you were quite surprised to get the phone call when it came.
Yeah, I'm a teacher at Frank Hayden Secondary School in Burlington, and I had just finished proctoring one of my exams and went for a little workout, and I got a phone call from Scott, and I just thought he wanted some stuff for the hall, like for International Women's Day or something. And so we were chatting for a little bit, and then he told me I was being inducted. And I mean, like, there's just there's only been one other female in. There hasn't been one in decades, and so I just didn't even think that it was like in the realm of a possibility. So it was certainly a surprise, and obviously an honor.
What's the highlight of your career? What was the moment where it made it all worthwhile? All the work, all the years you put into the sport. Where did it peak for you?
Pan Am Games 2015. Just being a part of a multi-sport games is a different beast. Like World Cups are amazing for sure, but a multi-sport games with all the other Canadian athletes there, the village, and had Canada House. It was just like extra special. And the fact that it was at home, like Ajax, it's only like an hour and a half from my house. We often play overseas. It's tough for family, friends to support. It's expensive to travel and stuff like that. So it was at home. I had tons of people there, multi-sport games, first and only time ever that women's baseball has been in one of those games. So that was easily the highlight. But last weekend was so special. It took over for sure.
Tell us how much interaction did you have with your fellow inductees, which include Russell Martin and Jimmy Key, for longtime baseball fans or Blue Jays fans?
Yeah, Russ was great. Jimmy Key, unfortunately, wasn't able to make it, but Russ was there. He was great. Everybody was great, really. Like, people were just so happy and excited to be and honored to be part of it. So his golf game is considerably better than mine. He hits the links pretty regularly in Arizona, and it looked like it. He looked like he knew what was going on. I had more fun just talking to everybody and driving around in the cart, but no, it was really exciting. I had met him once or twice before, but actually got a chance to meet his family and his little girls, his wife, and stuff like that was pretty fun. Explain
how the connection to the Vancouver Canadians came to be, Ashley.
Well, I had worked with the Jays amateur side doing some stuff in Toronto for probably 10 or 12 years. I'm a teacher and still had summers available to do some coaching. And one of my national team coaches, helped them run some things and asked if I wanted to help do some coaching there, all amateur type of stuff. And then during COVID, I had been selected to be part of a Take the Field initiative by the MLB to try to get more women and diversity and inclusion involved in baseball. And I guess I was just lucky that there was the lockout that year. And so they just sent all our resumes and cover letters to every single team. I might have been the only Canadian, if I remember correctly. And so as part of that group. And so I ran across the Blue Jays desk, and Joe Sheehan saw it and, asked a few questions. And because I had been involved slightly on the amateur side, some people had some good things to say, and then it all started from there. It was probably a 2-year process in order for me to be able to get a leave of absence from teaching and to kind of work it all out. So certainly wasn't like a quick or easy story, but the stars kind of aligned and everything happened. And this is my second season here and really loving it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, tell us about your duties with the Seas and how you've taken to Vancouver in this club.
Yeah, I've been out west a couple times, but never for any length of time. And, everybody out here says West Coast, best coast. And so you can see why it's a beautiful, beautiful city, beautiful place to live. And I have some friends out here, so it was nice. I didn't feel like I was kind of on an island by myself. So and Vancouver, the Canadians have been awesome. The staff has really been great. Last year, we had an unbelievable season that I'm sure everybody knows about. To win in your first season does not happen a lot. And, those guys were great. And this year we got another great group of players. Really happy to work with them. They're trusting. They work hard. They got great attitudes. They want to get better. And I wasn't sure what to expect when I came in. I'm almost positive that not a single one of them has had a female coach before in their life. And so I wasn't sure how they were going to react to me, but like anything else, I was going to work really hard. I was going to try to earn their trust, and they came in with an open mind, and they allowed me to do that. So it's been a really great 2 years.
Did they want to know your story? Did they ask you about so how did you get here?
I think some have Googled me, to be honest. And I don't. Whenever in doubt, people just ask Siri or hit Google.
Yeah.
And so I think some of them have asked a few questions. And then, like last weekend, they found out about the Hall of Fame weekend. I was gone for a few days, and they've been really great. Like, they ask a lot about women's ball and, what my playing days were like and stuff like that. I think any athlete, they all like to talk about the good old days and and the good stories and stuff. And so just like them, I have my own. And so we talk a little bit about that. I'm a huge hockey fan too. Playoffs just ended. And so a couple of the guys here are big hockey fans, and a few from Boston. So I wore that a little bit. Being a Leafs fan, I wear that every year. But yeah, just find ways to connect with them and to have fun. They've been really great.
Well, you're selling yourself short. You're not just a hockey fan.
Mm-hmm.
You were a pro player, member of the original National Women's Hockey League, the CWHL as well. Tell us about your hockey career.
I love hockey just as much as I love ball. I started playing when I was 5 or 6 years old, played with my brother. And then oddly enough, he didn't really like it, but I loved it. And I stayed playing. I played at university, won a national championship at Wilfrid Laurier, had an amazing career there. It was the best time. And then, graduated, got a teaching job right away, which I was pretty lucky. And that allowed me to continue to play in the CW. And then eventually, my playing days were over. I reffed in the OUA for a little bit, and then eventually got this position. So continued to move a little bit away from hockey. Still a huge fan. Still coach the boys hockey team at my high school and love the game. Watch as many Leaf games as possible. Watch the entire playoffs. Love hockey. Love talking about it. It's always going to be something that I enjoy being a part of. Just a little less, obviously, while I'm pursuing coaching career here.
What have you made of the evolution of the women's professional game, Ashley?
The start of the PW this year was amazing, like such a long time coming. You saw the Canada-US rivalry at the Olympics for the last 3-4 Olympic Games, and it's like one of the top 2, top 3 televised events every Olympic Games. Like, it's just, they never let us down. They put on a great show, and so it was only a matter of time, for somebody to step up and kind of start this league. And the fact that it was Billie Jean King is just it's just so perfect. And I don't think anybody would be telling you the truth if they said that they knew that it would take off the way it did. Like, obviously we all wanted it to be successful, but it actually blew up. It was so amazing. I was able to get my hands on tickets to the first ever game on January 1st in Toronto. And I had tears in my eyes watching. It was crazy. The place was going crazy. People were everywhere, jerseys on. And I was like, man, this is just like old school going to Maple Leaf Gardens, like Habs and Leafs, and just the place was rocking. And so I was so happy for those players, so happy for players that came before them, and so happy for players that are going to come after them, that they now have a chance to play professionally and getting the credit that they deserve.
I was happy to see Spooner, before she retires, get in there and be able to lead a league in scoring. She's on the backside of her career now, and for her to have a dominant season, for her to have an avenue to lead a league in scoring is really cool moment.
And as a mom, no less. Lots of women have a tough decision to make. Do I want to start a family? Does that end my career? And and stuff like that. I don't think a lot of people realize that, but she came back and was dominant. She had such a great year. And she's I played one season with her, very end of my career, just before she went to Ohio State, and awesome. Tons of energy. Exactly what you see on TV is exactly how she is. Tons of energy, super passionate, works hard, but everybody loves her. I was really, really happy for her, but happy for all of them to get that, to experience that. And you see a few of them now after one season have retired already and are moving on to, to finish their careers or whatever. Like Erica Howe is one example. She was a goalie in Toronto, and she's been a firefighter for years, but just didn't want to miss this opportunity. There's so many women who have just waited their entire life to have this and have put their life on hold really for 1 year at least to be a part of it, and are now moving on. But I think after watching this year, you can see how great it was. And I think it's really going to continue to build and get better.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the second half of the Northwest League is upon us. Ashley, what does the club got to do to get back to the playoffs and defend that title?
Honestly, we've been a 500 club basically the whole year. Had a tough time really getting over that hump. We've off to a great start, so we're 3-0 in the second half. I think we just got to put everything together. So we'll have nights where we hit the lights out, and then just can't buy an out, or we'll have nights where our pitching gives up 3 hits, but we don't hit anything or something like that. So just being able to put a complete game together for 9 innings is going to be really important for us. I think having the first half of the season under our belt is really good. Like, half our team's back from last year. Lots of people want to compare. You can't compare teams and stuff like that. So a little bit of pressure coming back as the champions. But I think, the first half was really good for us. Got a lot of guys, tons of playing time, back in the groove. And I think just being able to put a complete game together is going to be really important. We got off to a good start with the first 3, and hopefully we can get rolling here with this homestand.
Yeah, big 9-game homestand here. Hillsborough in town, Canada Day nooner, schools out nooner on Friday, fireworks Thursday, and the O-Dog, Orlando Hudson there. That's part of the superstar appearance on Tuesday. Ashley, thank you so much for the time. Big hearty congratulations again on your induction to the Hall of Fame, and we'll look for you down at the Nat. Can't wait.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.